So in our previous video, we just talked about the concept of numbers in JavaScript. Okay. So now in this video, I'm going to talk about yet another data type, and that's known as BigInt. Okay. So before that, I also want to tell you one more thing, that if you haven't downloaded these notes for the lecture, then you can just check the description of this video. I have given the link for this drive. Okay, you can get my handwritten notes for all of the lectures that I will be teaching on this YouTube channel. Okay, so let's get back to writing code. So we were talking about our next data type, and that is BigInt, and it may be something new for most of you. So what actually the concept of BigInt is, we already have numbers in JavaScript, okay, but there is a limitation that numbers in JavaScript can only range from 2 raised to the power 53 minus 1. Okay, this is the maximum number that you can represent using integer or floating point number in JavaScript. Okay, and the minimum is just the negative of this. So the minimum is 2 raised to the power 53 minus 1, and it's negative. So this is the range of numbers that you can represent, okay, that you can represent in JavaScript using numbers. And this is because of some internal representation in the memory. Okay, you cannot represent a number bigger than this one and less than this one. So for solving this purpose, we have to introduce yet another data type in which we can introduce or store an arbitrary length of integer. So that's what BigInt is for. Okay, so how to define it? I will just say a constant variable I'm going to define here. Constant variable means the variable which once assigned a value is never going to change. Okay, again, so here I will say const x equals, okay, const x equals, I will say an arbitrary big number. Okay, so this is my arbitrary big number, and if I just write it like this, then what is the difference between declaring a normal number and a BigInt? So the difference is that we have to write this small n at the end of the BigInt number, so that to specify that it's a BigInt. Okay, and now it will be stored in our memory. So if I write here as alert statement saying alert x, okay, then let's see what happens. So this is just going to put an alert stating this number. Okay, so let's see, save this and go back to your web browser where you have opened this index.html file, and now you have to click refresh. So when you click refresh, you will be able to see this BigInt or big integer that we have just defined. Okay, so this is all that I have to say about BigInt, and this is just a basic introduction of BigInt. And if you are interested to learn this, then we will talk about these concepts, okay, which are less important, at the end of this series. So our next data type is a string data type, and that's very important for any programming language. Okay, so strings are very important. So let me first tell you that your name is a string, okay, your address is a string. So strings are everywhere when we study any programming language, and the basic definition for a string is that a string is a sequence of characters, okay, symbols, numbers and letters. Whatever sequence you can make out of using numbers, characters, letters or any symbol, that is what we call a string. Okay, so a string, you have to remember this thing, that in JavaScript or in any other programming language, strings are always surrounded inside this double quotes or single quotes. But in JavaScript, we also have a third type to specify strings, and that is using this backticks. And you can find this backticks at the left of key 1, okay, on the top left corner of your keyboard. And after this, let me write some code here for declaring and defining some string. Okay, so here I am defining a string variable. So I have given the variable name as str, and I'm going to store some string inside this. So I have to use either of these notation, double quotes, single quotes or this backticks. So the first string I have declared it using double quotes. Now the second string I'm naming it as str1 and using single quotes. Okay, so here I will say that single quotes are also fine. Okay, single quotes are also fine, and this statement, and then I will make use of backticks to define another string, and I have named this variable as str2. Now I will use this backticks and I will say backticks are okay too. Okay, but there is something even more when you use backticks, and let me tell you what it is. Okay, so let's say here I am saying let str3 equals, and I'm using backticks here, and I'm saying here I will write John. Okay, but before John I want to say hello, and I have already made a string which has hello in it. So what I'm going to do, let me write it here for you. So I will just write here this dollar symbol. Okay, then use this curly brackets, and inside that I will say str. So what actually is going to happen when we use these backticks and wrap something inside this dollar and then this curly braces, then that thing is not going to be treated as a string but as a variable or an expression. So what will happen, the value of this variable str, that is hello, will be replaced here. Okay, so the purpose of using this backticks is to use the extended functionality, that is to embed some kind of variable or expression inside a string, okay, or along with a string. So this is what it does. So let me show it to you practically. So here I will say alert str3. Okay, and let's see what happens. And before that I will comment out all of the alerts that I have written here, okay, so that they do not pop up when I click refresh. Okay, because I just want to deal with this. So save this, okay, using Control S or Command S. Go back to your web browser and you have to click refresh. Okay, so let's see what it's saying. Hello John. Okay, and you can see in my code that I have nowhere written hello John. I have just written this weird looking dollar sign, then this curly brackets, and inside that I have just passed this str. Okay, and then written this John. And let's see what happens if I use here double quotes in place of backticks. Okay, so here I have removed the backticks and replaced them by this double quotes. Again save this. Okay, go back to your web browser and click refresh, and now you can see that it's just mimicking whatever I have written inside the double quotes. Okay, so that's the difference between double quotes and this backticks, because backticks have an extended functionality. Okay, that is you can embed a variable or an expression inside a string. So let me give you an example where I will be embedding an expression inside this. So here I will say alert. Okay, and inside this alert I am going to use backticks, and I will say the result is, and then I am going to use this dollar symbol, and I'm going to write an expression and a mathematical expression inside these curly braces. I will say 1 plus 2. Okay, so can you guess what will be the output? And that's very simple. It's just going to produce this result, that it will say an alert like this. The result is, it is going to evaluate this expression. Okay, because it's not just a simply a string for it's because it's not just a simple string. When you use this backticks, it's an expression or a variable which is written inside this curly braces along with the dollar symbol. So the result will be this thing. Okay, or the output is going to be this thing, that is the result is 3. Let's see, save this. Now go back to your web browser, click refresh. Again click refresh, because this is from the previous alert. Okay, this alert. So when I click refresh now, you can see it is saying the result is 3, and that's exactly what I told you. Okay, you can see here. So the result of this expression is this one. Okay, so here I have explained you that you can actually embed. Here I have actually shown you embedding and embedding a variable in a string, okay, using backticks. And in this example I have shown you how to embed embedding a expression embedding a expression in a string, okay. And I hope this is perfectly clear to all of you. So this is all that I want to tell you about strings, okay friends. Now in the next lecture we are going to start our new data type, and that is Boolean data type, okay, or it's also known as logical data type. So we will see about that in our next lecture. So I'm hoping to join with all of us in our next lessons. So see you there.